Oinkers Unite! There is an Oink Time live show this Sunday at the Comedy Lounge with Benny Boy, Sean, myself, and two awesome guests. We have Steph Broadbridge and Jamie Kirk. It's going to be really fun. 6 p.m. Come hang out with us little piggies. Hello and welcome to Oink Time Pod.
Where's the passion? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Oink Time with Ben Ellwood.
I'm Jen Carnovale. I'm holding our comfort pig from our lovely producer Sean Allen.
Yay! Welcome to the show. Today's guest is the fantastic Ange Lavoipierre. She is a comedian, a journalist, and a host of the ABC podcast, The Signal, and that is a fantastic fucking podcast. You should listen to it.
Listen to The Signal. See Ange's show at all awesome comedy festivals around Australia, The Final Form.
Adelaide, Sydney, and Melbourne.
Yeah. If you like our podcast, you can rate it 5 oinks. I'm loving this pig. You can rate it. You can star it. Tell your friends. Tell everybody. If you want to contact us, you can contact us at Twitter at OinkTimePod.
Don't tweet at me. I'm done with Twitter.
You can tweet at me. You can tweet at our pod.
I'm done with social media. Don't bother me on the fucking internet. I want nothing to do with it anymore. We're done.
Loyal Oinkers, people who heard before, we used to have a hat where we'd pick a word, changed it up.
Yeah.
Caused a lot of arguments with me and Benny.
Yeah, we're just constantly fighting. Now we're just talking.
Changed it up. Asked the guest to pick a word. Ange's word for this episode was...
Tattoo.
Tattoo. Tattoo.
Cheers to you.
Yay, I'm going to pretend from far.
I think you should have a whiskey.
All right.
You got tonsillitis?
I don't have tonsillitis. I'm not going
to... It was a bold statement to walk in and declare I have tonsillitis as you sit.
In a way because
I'm setting the bar really fucking high.
So anything less than that, we're going to consider you healthy as an ox at this point.
I don't think anyone.
A headache.
I don't think anyone believed me
I slept weird, you know.
I don't think anyone believed me when I cancelled my first festival show saying I had tonsillitis. Like it seemed like such a lame fucking.
Sounds like a lie.
And then to say, "Oh, I had my tonsils removed when I was 14, but I have tonsillitis." But they left a skerrick of fucking tonsil in my throat.
That would only happen to you. I lost my voice for one Sydney Comedy Festival show, and it sucked because it was sold out, and I was so pumped. And everyone thought I pussied out because I was like, I've lost my voice. And people were like, yeah, right. Like, just like, she's clearly, she doesn't have it together. And it was like, I was so fucking depressed because I'd actually written a fucking show and then whatever.
But you'll haul ass to gigs even if you're exhausted. I've got I've got history of just bailing on gigs at the last second because I don't feel like it.
Yeah, Benny tried to convince me not to do a gig the other day.
Well, you didn't feel like doing it, so why would you do it?
That's a reason. I've actually really fucked myself for ever calling in sick to anything because there are a number of times when I've showed up like shitting myself, like lost voice, like really, really sick. Gigs, but also like I'm thinking more like at work as well. Just in general, I've proved, so many times that I will put up with hell. That there's no way that like me going like I've got a migraine ever flies there like she just doesn't want to come in.
This is why you've got to set the bar extremely low when you start any job.
Yes,
that's how I got through my entire retail career, was just by acting kind of simple. And so basic tasks, I would never complete them properly. So they'd always be like, just go out on the floor. Just go on the floor and serve the customers. Don't do the stock take.
Benny does the sprained ankle thing. You could ride that wave.
Oh, that's a good one.
No, it's not a good one because I'm one of those liars that can't keep track of their lies. And I've told the same comedy promoter like multiple times, oh, sorry, man, I can't do the gig. I've rolled my ankle.
He just thinks you've got the world's weakest ankle.
I do have weak ankles. You got tattoos today?
I got tattoos today. And
I'm sorry I reacted in the exact way that you didn't want me to react.
It's an authentic reaction. You don't have to apologize for anything. But as soon I was like, I talk about my tattoos, and I'm like, why, Ange? Why? You know what the response is going to be. It's never because everyone always sounds like a fuckhead when they try to explain a tattoo. There's no way to do it and sound fine because it never means anything good except to you. So I didn't so much want to talk about what the tattoos were that I got and what they mean so much as like I only ever decide on a tattoo the day before or even on the day.
Really?
Yeah. And I had never thought that was really that weird until I explained that to someone today and they were like, "You what?"
Yeah.
Most people spend ages deciding, I guess, because it's on there forever.
Yeah.
Unless you pay to get it off nowadays.
That's what the entire economy of the 21st century is going to be based around, regret.
Yeah.
Just fucking tattoo removal. So, seriously, I got a friend that got a laser. She's making a fucking fortune.
Yeah, I bet.
Just getting a comedian friend of ours saw her recently to get a tattoo removed. I'll tell you
Well,
what,
I'm still getting more, and there's one that I sort of like semi-regret. I don't really regret it, but I'm just kind of like, it's annoying, and I
Where
look
is
at it,
it?
and it's
Like, what
on
is
my
it?
arm. It's like very visible.
What is that?
And so I keep getting it changed and changed and changed every time, and I got it changed again today. It started as a triangle.
Yeah, have you had that for ages? Because I feel like when I met you in Edinburgh, you had it, and
Yeah.
but you didn't like it. Something about it irritated you then. It was like crooked or something.
Yeah, and instead of getting it removed, I just keep on adding something new to it. It's like this awful Leaning Tower of Pisa tattoo. Like one day my arm's just going to be covered and I'll be like, it's still annoying.
Yeah,
Like,
you'll have a sleeve.
I'll have a sleeve. That's how this ends, is me getting a sleeve.
What is the psychology about not...
planning
Sorry,
it.
I just did a shot of whiskey and it hit my head really fucking hard.
The psychology behind not
Yeah,
planning
what
it.
is the psychology
Yeah.
between...
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I back this because all the ones that I love the most, I didn't really think about. And I just got the day before, like decided on the way or decided the day before. And you just have like a good feeling about it. But I think if you spend too long with the idea, because I'm a very indecisive person. And I will, and then, you know, have historically disliked myself quite a lot as well. So if the idea just stays in my head, then like it will be contaminated by my dislike of myself.
Yeah.
And the whole, like it's easier to get to hate the idea than once it's sort of externalized, even though that sounds like a weird way to describe something that you get physically tattooed on your person.
Yeah.
It's externalized in a way. And I'm like, oh, it's cool. I can look at it. It's out in the world. It's not just in my
Yeah, you can bastardize
stupid
anything in your head.
brain box. Yeah.
And you can
exactly.
turn it into a really horrible thing or just argue with yourself till the joy's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is
We all
why
know about arguing with ourselves till the joy's gone.
which is why you got to
Benny.
get all your
wheelhouse.
ideas out, get all your like, and so I guess
yeah.
my version of that is, and not have them percolate too long because you will hate, well, I will anyway, you will hate them very, very quickly. And I guess the tattoo is like a version of that. But I understand it sounds bonkers.
No, it doesn't. I'm just curious as to like, then what is the, because I don't have any tattoos, and my thinking of tattoos has always been like, oh, it's, you know, it's got to have resonance and it's got to have meaning and it's got to be
That's
some
a
kind of...
mistake.
Yeah,
It's
I think
this-
it will...
It's the same problem that like is why people never find a way to tweet. And actually, you're probably that's the wrong analogy for you of all people. Because I can imagine that you would just hate that whole idea. But but like, you know, you can overthink it. It's just a fucking tattoo.
Then what is the...
Well, I think because a while ago, like the tradition of it, and like when you're thinking of like this, you know, when people got them, you know, well, yeah, within our generation, I guess. When we were younger, people who had them, there was a reason. It was either like a statement or it was like a signature of a personality type or it was reflective of where someone had worked or lived, or there was like a pretty big weight attached to it. Even if it was a naked chick on a guy's calf, you were like, that man's a badass, because back then no one got tattoos. No one got tattoos.
True, yeah.
Now every hipster, hippie, you know, annoying dickhead, lovely, cool person, artistic.
You like how she added that parody for you? Just so you didn't
but
feel
like
it.
artistic fucking genius all has them. Do you know what I mean?
don't.
So some of them, well,
okay.
so some of them you look at and you're like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful piece of art I've ever seen. And then other ones you're like, that I don't even fucking, like you gotta, like there's a balloon on your tit and we don't know why. You know,
Yeah,
like it's like
the threshold lowers.
Totally
right? Because
different beast.
workplaces, and you see that reflected in like, you know, actual sort of regulations. You know, it's now fine for you to be in a white collar job and have visible tattoos.
yeah, it's
That's
just an
fine.
accessory now.
Yeah.
But what my thing with Benny is that when we were younger, that's definitely not what it was. And so you might have that still there, which I did when I was younger, where it's like, oh, it carries weight because it's significant, because back then it was.
But part of what's great about a tattoo and so addictive about it is that, because it's still permanent, like you're still you're never totally going to shake the fact that it's weighty getting it done. It's ink on your skin. It's your only body. And part of what's addictive and nice about it is the kind of nihilism of, and that, you know, one day leading going like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and it's going to be forever. And I've just decided. And a lot of the time, I've gone and done it with like, you know, people who were not necessarily registered. I don't know if I'm saying that, but like, you know, just like friends with
just someone with a fucking safety pin and a bottle
not
of
a
ink.
safety pin, like the step up from that, whatever the step up from that is. Like they've like gone through the YouTube tutorials on how not to give someone AIDS, but like.
So that's that. I guess that's what I'm curious about. Like, if there's not a lot of thought put behind the image that you're tattooing into your skin, what is the driving motivation?
Yeah, why do
in
it?
saying I want a tattoo?
There is thought behind it, and sometimes it's just. I mean, sometimes like it's just an aesthetic choice. I just like the way that it looks, and I don't think that that's shallow. I think there's like meaning in aesthetic and beauty, and I don't apologize for that. But I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think what am I trying to say? There is still meaning in it. Like what, you know, like this stuff. It's what I meant to say before is that I sound like a fuckhead if I try to explain it, but that doesn't mean that it means nothing.
Yeah, it
No,
still means
absolutely.
something.
Yeah.
It means
of
it's like a little, you know, like thing with myself. I'm like, oh yeah, you know that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I look at it and it's cool. And like sometimes, you know, if I, you know, sometimes I'll tell someone if I'm drunk enough what it means and then immediately regret it.
Why? Because it's difficult to
Because their
articulate.
reaction, there's no well, yeah, it's always better in your head. And then and whatever their reaction is never going to be like, because they're never going to, you know, it's like when you try to explain your best friend to someone, right? Their reaction, it's abstract. Their reaction's never going to be appropriate because it's never going to be able to match yours. So there's something intrinsically unsatisfying about explaining the tattoo to someone because even if they're very kind about it and they do kind of get it on some level, they're always going to fall a little bit short of what you hope their reaction would be in your like drunk decision-making mind.
But I think a lot of the most resonant things that are going on in anyone's head is like that. Like it's very difficult to articulate, you know, anything with weight beyond kind of a very defined. Yeah. Like a kid the other day asked me, "Oh, do you believe in God?" And
ooh, what do you say?
well, I mean, the kid was 6. So it's a pretty heavy.
So you're like, fuck no, man.
Well, no, first I said, "Do you believe in God?" She's like, "No, that's stupid." It's like, okay, your parents are obviously radical atheists.
Cool.
But you know, it was because the answer is yes and no.
Sure.
Like the answer is no. I don't believe in a conceptual kind of religious version of God of a guy writing a book and having a son and all that nonsense.
Who roughly resembles us.
Yeah.
All
Like,
that.
yeah. So, and it's kind of like a pantheist, pagan, whatever. Even saying the word sounds so fucking lame.
See, this is you. You explaining this is me trying to explain my tattoos.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
to
saying.
people.
That's what I'm saying. But my feelings of that have intense resonance for me. But whenever you try and articulate it, it just falls apart and you sound like some hippy-dippy, airy-fairy, like, oh, I just think like trees are a manifestation of God's consciousness. Well, shut the fuck up.
I think it's just anything personal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anything that's personal is really hard to explain to someone else. Even if it's like a relationship and you're with someone and people are like, but why are you, you said you're happy, what's happening? And it's like no one can accurately explain why they love someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Have either of you ever been in that situation where you're in a relationship where you adore the person but no one else can possibly understand why you even could tolerate that person for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Nah,
God, yeah.
Everyone I've been with is a fucking king. Yeah, of course. I mean, I've had family members definitely make comments about exes. Like, really? You're okay?
Yeah.
I've had
That
to
kind of gentle, like,
Yeah.
oh, really? Is it all right?
Have you ever had to like, because I've had to do this, like while you're with a person, like come up with a blurb and you don't realize you're doing it, but it's almost like memorizing a bit. You've got like a thing that you do and it's just a script that you run when someone's like, and how are things going with redacted?
The justification.
Like, yeah. And you're like, well, look, they're really working on their stuff and like this is the way in which, and and you switch off. It's like when you're asked to spell your last name. Like you just like, you leave the building and you come to and you finish the script and you're like, oh, well, hopefully that worked this time.
Yeah. But they're
When you're
glazed
trying to
over.
explain why you're with a shithead or something.
Yeah, when you try to
Oh,
explain
yeah.
everyone's like,
You
what are
definitely
doing
have a
with that
script
person?
because
Yeah.
you're making an excuse.
Well, they're different when they're alone with me
Yeah.
than they are with everyone else.
They're really kind or they're really funny or, yeah, they don't want to do this, but I mean, and because you're lying to yourself. So that's why it becomes a script because most of the time you yourself know that they're fucking fucked up or flawed or something's really wrong. Well, not flawed, everyone's flawed, but something's really wrong. And so it's like, it's that narrative where you're acting too because you're like, Like, you're crying on the inside while laughing.
Yeah.
It's a
Waiting for reality to
I mean,
catch
like
up with your
deep
fucking
down
delusions.
is sweet, and it's like, no, it's a dickhead.
Speaking of things that are very difficult to understand from the outside, have you ever? Because I got caught with this. I got caught with this one time. Have you ever been caught with like a pet, like your pet names have been exposed, like your talk, the chat that you do with a partner, like that looks absurd from the outside and is absurd, but like has an innate cultural meaning that is difficult to convey and very specific and not as bad as it seems.
Oh no, I've been caught one time by Ben, but it wasn't weird.
What
Chris
was it?
called and I said, "Okay, bye, my love," and you were like, "Oh my love, that's so sweet." And I was
Yeah, I
like,
thought it was sweet. It's very
That
sweet.
is sweet.
But that's it. Like,
But it's like
I'm not.
but it's like an old
yeah.
world wog sweet.
I'm not like a. Hey Smoochie, like I hate that shit. I'm not into that at all.
That's like beating up on how babies suck. Like saying that pet names suck.
No, they don't suck.
Like,
No.
you know what I mean? Like-
Chris has like a million nicknames for me.
Oh,
Wait, give me
really?
one.
Go,
What does he call you?
Go.
I think I've told you a few of them.
What? Well, you haven't told the listening audience.
Let me think of
told
one.
the
Let me think
internet.
of one that was from like before.
Oh, what? Not,
Well, in the
not a
meantime,
current
I
one.
can dob my mum. Like, so my dad calls my mum Jenny Wren. And he's like the
That's nice.
staunchest dude. Her name's Jen, and
Jenny Wren.
Jenny Wren, and is and sometimes Cookie Look.
Cookie look, it's so sweet.
It is. It's so sweet. But I was like, I mean, I thought that
But
was absurd.
who's like? But like, I mean, even when saying like, oh, they're gross. Very rarely, if I heard you on the phone and be like, okay, I don't know, said something. You wouldn't be that grossed out unless it's like really disgusting, like my snooky pookie. Like then it's yuck. But if you're like, all right,
It's
my
the ooh sounds, yeah.
yeah. But if you're saying like Jenny Wren's kind of cute, or like whatever. I
It's
mean,
when it becomes infantilized baby talk.
Yes.
That it's
Well,
fucking
yes,
gross.
yes.
yeah, anything beyond
shit's-
that, I think
yeah.
it's fine.
But I've got a theory about why, like, you get infantilization in relationships.
Why?
I think it's because so why in an evolutionary sense would we have like babies and young things that trigger something in our brain that we're like, that's cute, and you like that, you have a positive response
So
to
you
it.
don't kill
and
it.
it's innately so you don't harm it because it's young and defenseless and vulnerable. Exactly. No, that's the thing. That's the thing. And
So
so
you don't eat it.
I think the reason that people seek to position themselves I should start at the start. I think the reason that people sort of like they don't mean to, but the reason that they're lunging at baby talk is actually a subconscious drive to position themselves as vulnerable to protect themselves from attack and like cruelty in the relationship.
So I can act like a fucking cunt in the relationship, but as long as I get called schnookums, I'm not going to get broken up
I
with.
think it's
I mean,
actually
that's
the
a wild
person.
oversimplification, but yeah, essentially.
But I think it's the person who's saying it that's projecting, not the person who's receiving it. So I think the
Yes.
person who's saying
yes.
it is saying it because they're like, look how innocent and sweet my
Yeah.
choice is, rather
trying
than
to-
the person. Because I mean, no one's picking their own nicknames, are they?
No.
Yeah.
I think the infantilizing baby names in a relationship. Okay, I don't think this is remote, right? I think this is on a spectrum. This is so good. I haven't had an opportunity to air this theory yet. Anyway, this is fantastic for me. It's on a spectrum, and sooner on the spectrum is actually just like the platonic nicknames we give each other, like Benny.
Yeah. Oh,
Like that is actually a way
right.
that actually sits on the same sort of spectrum of behavior.
Yes.
I think it's like a low key version of trying to like
But I don't-
engendering.
But I don't see him in, like, I don't feel like it's calling him Ben or Benny changes the way I see him.
No. But
I mean,
but
you've
it
called
is-
me Jenny when I'm upset
But
because it's more
it is a mark
affectionate.
of affection because
Yeah,
if someone,
it's a mark of
if someone, there's
Yeah.
like 4 people that can call me Benny where I don't like feel like I'm having a fucking aneurysm because like Benny, there's a scale with those names where it's on one end it is incredibly endearing and affectionate, and on the other side it's completely condescending and belittling.
Yeah, and patronizing.
You know what I mean? So
it
if
has to be
yeah.
wielded by not everyone can wield that.
it must
stuff.
be earned.
Yeah.
When a 6'2" guy goes, "Oh, g'day, Benny," it's like, get fucked. You're like making some kind of power play, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
sorry,
I've had
continue
it,
with-
But when a friend, for example, someone who has this, the standing to wield that kind of thing with you, then it's actually like it's an analogous, because it's like a version of trying to, because like you say, you're not choosing your own name. You're actually just trying to like foster a culture where we're really, really cute, really, really sweet to each other. And this is in the context of the relationship, you know, a romantic relationship where I initially sort of mentioned it.
Started, yeah.
Yeah. It's about trying to like dial everything down, like ratchet everything down. We're not adults anymore. We're just kind of like mucking around. It's very childlike. It's very, very like, you know, it would be aberrant to at that point sort of lob a grenade, say something that was like mean, even in a joking way. It kind of like is a departure from the tone that's been established when you call someone like a cute name.
Yeah.
And I think nicknames in friendship are not that, but they're related. They're like a cousin. They're like a version of that. They're on the spectrum.
It's a mark of trust. And
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Because guys give each other nicknames, but it's their last name. Like everyone called my brother Carna because our last name's Carnovale. And that's like a sign of like we're mates now.
You think so?
Yeah, I think for guys.
Because everyone in comedy calls each other by their last name.
Yeah, but that's also a sign of friendship though.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not true.
I think
I get called Ellwood by people who I would consider staunch
yeah, you don't
enemies.
think that they're your friend, but they think that you're their friend.
Well, they're wrong.
But you know what I'm saying?
name.
It's an affectionate thing, and it's also like a club thing for comedy. It's like we're in a club. We call each other by our last names.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely, there's definitely, now that you talk about it, I recognize that when I am, you know, first dating someone, I actively don't allow that to happen. Like I withdraw.
But it wouldn't
from
be
that.
organic anyway. It'd be weird if you're just dating
Yeah,
someone.
no. But like, I think that I actively put a stopper on it, even potentially commencing. You know, because I think you're right. It is. I think once that starts,
It's intimacy.
Something has leveled up into a different plane of affection or connection or intimacy.
Yeah.
Well, so on that, what's like your nickname or your weirdest thing?
There's been like some animal nicknames in the past.
That makes sense.
What does that
And
mean?
it's like, well, like I would. Oh, it feels like too much of a breach of trust to
Oh,
really
you don't
like
have to
explain
say
it. But like to suffice to say, like each of us was assigned an animal, and I'm like, I knew the whole time. I'm like, this is. Fuck me, this is gonna look weird if anyone ever like sees this. This is like, and this is so not like me. Like you know me, but I mean like
But it depends
people
what kind of animal.
I was gonna say.
like
you know,
just
there's
like something.
Are you like squawking during
Yeah,
sex?
like-
Because then it's kind of
No,
funky.
it never like. Here's the thing. This is part of where this theory came out of. Is that it never.
No, I was
ever,
kidding.
the
It doesn't
hemispheres-
go into
I know,
sex.
but this is what that's what convinced me that it was like there was something intrinsically childlike about it, because it doesn't ever.
Get
I'm
sexy.
like, okay, in this universe where we've created, where we're these two animals, they never fuck. They're all.
Well, unless they're the same breed, it's not likely.
Then it would be weird. But
So
then
it's
we're
like
sort of
some
like
interspecies-
imposing a kind of reason on this like weird universe that gets built, and it gets built in increments, right?
Wait. You need to fucking back up and clarify this, because you're talking with a level of like,
yeah, you're
I don't
talking
understand what you
about
mean.
a universe.
Yeah,
whereas-
what is that? What do you mean? You build
Well,
a
you just-
universe with your partner where you
Yeah,
role
you
play as
kinda
different
lost me
animals. So
there.
you're a koala and he's a fucking like an ibis or something.
Like
what
I've
the fuck?
heard people
It's not
say
role
animal
play.
nicknames, but
It's like it's a nickname. It's just a nickname.
But like, give me like you don't have to say like the actual one, but like give me like an example.
Like, for example, and these aren't it, but like maybe like. No, you can't make me do it. I won't do
like
it.
giraffe and panda.
Yeah, like something that you like. Okay, so did you ever play that? Like, did you ever play that game around the dinner table when you were a kid with your family? Which is like, which animal are we?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, your family was fucking screaming at each other.
Oh,
about,
whereas
like,
yours was a balanced
ciabatta rolls or
household
some
situation,
bullshit.
was it?
No, it was
Benny and Mum
Actually, yeah,
talking
actually-
about their animals at dinner.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, thank you.
But like, okay, so our family would assign like we'd go like, okay, so what's the breed of dog that best represents who we are? And Mark would be like, no, I'm a border collie. It's my brother. And I'd be like, I'm a kelpie. He'd be like, no, you're not a kelpie. You're a this. And so you try to like, you try to
I
assign
can't
based
tell
on
if that's the
characteristics.
cutest or lamest thing I've ever fucking
It's
heard.
both.
It's both. It's probably more the latter. But
Imagine asking.
we were children, but we were actually children at this point. So
Yeah.
it's like, it makes a little bit more sense.
Son, what dog are you? That's very cute.
What dog would you be?
We also used to play.
Chihuahua, small and angry.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
We also used to play Situation, or like so that was like interspersed with discussions about like Nazi Germany, and then this game called Situation. I think it was what it was called, and we'd be like, okay, kids, so the car's broken down and everyone's dead except you. You're trapped in the bush. What do you do? And they put us in these scenarios.
It's hypothetical.
And it's called. It was always like and then we'd played it so many times. By the time we were like 7, we were like, well, first thing I'd do is build a shelter, and these are the materials I'd use, and I'd take the water out of the the windscreen wiper bit of the car, and I'd like so there are all these like little tricks. And Mum and Dad just would teach us this weird like prepper survival stuff.
Yeah,
No
they're
wonder
trying to
you're
get you
so obsessed
ready.
with the apocalypse.
Yeah. They're like, when it ends, she'll be okay. She'll drink the car water. They're hooking you up.
Should be cool for another half hour.
But wait, how does that then relate to the dogs, the dog names, or the animal names?
Just
I was
conversations.
in defense of my family maybe being the cutesiest thing you'd ever heard. I'm like, no, there was some kind of cooked stuff that happened around the dinner table as well. There were cooked conversations as well as cutesy ones.
Right.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's any, I mean, if you were like, every conversation was wholesome, I'd be like, she's a psychopath. She's going to
Now
kill
that
us,
you
Ben.
mention it, I had an ex that used to call me Bear.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. See, it's not like I'm not trying to say
No,
that it's
no,
like
I know
you've
what
got
you
a
mean.
whole universe was maybe the wrong word.
Bear's
to
a good
use,
one.
But like,
or like,
it's like, yeah, like you're that animal, and then like I would get a lot of you would get a lot of bear videos from your partner, like ha ha ha, like look.
I had an old housemate say that I was a red panda, and then he drew me a red panda for Christmas.
You are not a red panda on any level.
What's a red panda?
It's a panda that's red.
No, but
It's
they're not,
little.
they're not even pandas. They're like these.
They are
They're not
pandas.
fucking pandas.
That is their
A
name.
panda is a fucking
Wouldn't
bear.
I know better than
You're
you?
a fucking idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. A panda is a bear, a
I
Chinese
am
bear, and a
a-
red panda is more like a raccoon than a bear.
Red panda.
It's not even related to a bear.
I would know more than you.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't look like a raccoon.
And
at
red
all.
pandas are like chilled animals. They're not like hyper anxious announcing.
You
their
know why? Because I
tonsillitis
used
the
to
moment they walk
fall
through the fucking
asleep
door.
in lots of places around the house, and I think that's why. And I was smaller then, like skinnier then. And one time I was asleep on the couch, and he said he didn't even see me. He almost sat on me, and he was like, she's like little and camouflaged. So I became a red
Do you
panda.
think that him calling you a red panda was like an attempt at a level of affection and intimacy that maybe you weren't willing to reciprocate?
No, we both had partners, and he's since married her and has children. He's very happy. There was never any flirting with that guy ever. There was another guy in the house called Dogs, because he was like a puppy dog, and he was really sweet and flirty and cute. But
you guys good at
But
flirting?
everyone called him that. Am I?
Either of you. Both
No,
of you.
I've actually like to the point that I've written it into my new show. I'm like somewhere in the course of my last long-term relationship, I forgot how to flirt. Like,
yeah.
and I never know when it's happening. When it's like it.
I'm terrible.
I don't know if I am. I think I'm okay.
You know how you're always.
You haven't tested it out in how long?
I think I'm okay. I don't know. Ben can always tell anyway. Like Ben will be like, "Oh, you're flirting with that person," like ages ago. With Chris, before we were dating, you were like so fucking
It was
obvious.
exhausting.
Yeah, well, he couldn't tell, so I couldn't have been that good. It must have been shit.
No, you could both tell. You were both circling each other. And it was obvious to everyone sitting around you, but neither of you had the balls to admit to each other that you were into each
Well,
other.
look at us now.
It's very nice. I'm terrible at flirting. You know how you
Are
always.
you?
Well, yeah. You know. How
You do flirt.
Do I?
Yes, Benjamin.
I flirt
How does
with.
he flirt?
I flirt with middle-aged
Jokes.
women that are unavailable.
Get some laughing.
That's why. And I flirt.
Get some laughing. Gets a bit more spring in his step.
Yeah.
Quicker to smile.
But
I
that
mean,
to me
everything
isn't-
everybody does.
But that
It's
to me isn't
cute.
flirting. That to me is just being a fucking amicable human being.
Yeah, but you don't do it with anyone except hot older women, so it makes me feel like perhaps it's flirting.
Yeah, I can flirt really easily.
And
with
younger
I can
women.
flirt really easily with Italian women. There's this Italian
Oh.
cafe I go to,
Hello.
and they're all just so like.
Warm.
It seems very non-transactional, and there's no weight to it.
But Italians flirt all the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. I think it's a cultural thing. But the thing that you're always accusing me of, which is a true accusation, that whenever I enter into a relationship, I put way too much weight on it immediately.
And is it
imme-
wrong?
I said off the bat that you're right. Fuck.
I'm just saying.
But I do that same thing with flirting, where it's just like, what does this mean? Like, what is this going to evolve into some kind of relationship or a marriage? And so it all falls apart for me, and I become very awkward and weird.
But you've flirted with people for the fun of it, just for the sake of laughing and stuff.
No. Older women that are unavailable, married older women. Where
But
it's
that's
like
your
there's no-
demographic.
It's not my demographic.
Like he's a TV show.
Well,
Benny's like, they're like a moth to the flame. You should see. Older women, a few kids.
It's
Benny
true.
Bear.
So
It's true.
are they like, is this just a happy thing where they happen to love you and they also happen to be your type?
I think that. Do you guys reckon that the person that you either have your first significant relationship with or lose your virginity to or whatever kind of sets a template for the future?
I used to think that. Now I don't. Because I used
Not
to have
really.
a thing for older guys, like to the point that my first relationship was with someone who
remember we
was
were talking.
significantly
Yeah,
older than me.
yeah.
Like I threw his 40th birthday party for him.
And how old were you at the time?
I was like 19, 20 at the time. And people were really like, understandably, like at the time I was like, whatever, it's fine. Age is just a number, which is like a thing that you say when you're either 19 or 90.
Yeah.
Of course it was weird for people. My parents were really cool about it, but everyone else was all kinds of freaked out. And I think for a little while I was like, or I did have a thing for older guys because I was always trying to be older because they put me through school 2 years early. So I was always just trying to like prove
Catch
that
up.
prove that I was older and more mature. And then I think once I got over that, like some point in my early 20s, I was like, oh, I'm aging all on my own.
Yeah, right. And what? So do you still have like a soft spot for older gentlemen?
No, this is what I'm saying. Like it's not a thing anymore. It's kind of, the only pattern is mean and tall at this point.
Like actually mean?
No, like they need to be fundamentally, kind.
Charismatic.
But yes, charismatic, mean, and
But with
tall.
like a little fucking nasty
They
edge.
need to have like a kind of like a mean streak, like a bit of a sharp tongue kind of thing.
Grumpy.
Not grumpy, just mean. Yeah, I don't know how else to put it.
I would see someone about that, I think. like,
No,
Then,
but
I
mean
go,
guy.
yeah. I don't know. Then, maybe I don't know. There are always departures from the norm, but that is the norm. And
Yeah.
they are fundamentally good people, but they like to perform their cleverness through being like cutting occasionally.
like acidic tongue.
Yeah, like it's sort of acerbic humor. I suppose
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
say.
So that's not really mean. When I hear mean, I think like
Abusive.
being a dick to you.
No.
Yeah.
I'm
Mean
not
to
I'm not
me
putting
is
up
like-
with anyone being a dick to me.
Or,
Let me say
or
that
cruel,
as a caveat.
like cruel or mean to you or other people.
Right on
but
the
being
line.
sharp-tongued or like
sharp-tongued,
yeah, that's
acerbic-
totally
acerbic
different.
wit
That's
kind of
totally
thing,
different, I think,
yeah.
to being mean, don't you?
Yeah, but like that
Mean to
that
me is
roasty
like-
kind of meanness, like if we're talking comedy, like that kind of
Yeah.
like right
People
up to
would
the
say
line,
that
like
we're mean
towing
to
the
each other.
line, towing the line.
Yeah, but that when I hear the word mean in terms of a relationship, I would never think of this.
It was subjective
I would think of like yeah,
interpretation
but I
of the
mean
word.
like in terms of a partner.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't like an intimate relationship. I would never think of like that. I understand more like having a bit of sass and being sharp tongued and kind of like trying to be like I don't know cocky or whatever. But yeah, the word mean, I'm like oh.
Yeah, and it's one of those things though, like where you have a type. Like if anyone asks you to rationalize it or defend it, you're like I don't know, like it's something like chemical. You're just like oh well, that's kind of like I don't know. That's
Yeah, I
something
mean
pretty
you know what
baked
you don't
into me.
like and what you do like.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't even know anymore.
I fucking hate cocky.
I have
people.
no fucking. I know what I don't like.
Yeah, but
like, I know-
then you do know what you like.
No. Because the pool of what I don't like is quite small.
But that's fine. That's all
Is that
right.
way to say you're not picky?
No, I am.
But that's okay, though.
I am absurdly picky,
Right,
and
right.
it is a irrational based on who and what I am.
Right.
I am. Yeah, I'm
There
disgusting.
isn't a
that's-
clear pattern.
I think
Okay.
that's okay.
What?
That you're picky and you know what you like.
But I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what I like. The older I
But then
get,
you're picky, but you don't know what you like.
this goes back to what I was saying before about templates. So and back to what you were saying about, I've got a type of, middle-aged women. And I was very similar to you.
A woman who challenges you,
I do like to be challenged.
and I guess often they're older.
Yeah, and I was very like you, Ange. My first relationship was with someone significantly older, and it was scandalous at the time. And I think I've always kind of gone in that direction. But as I get closer, I'm now older than. No, I'm the exact same age as the woman that I lost my virginity to and had my first
Right,
relationship with was
right.
when we first hooked up. And as I slowly, kind of come into that realm, it's like that template
it around or
seems
something.
it's changed,
Yeah.
and it's not like I'm suddenly now attracted to fucking 20-year-olds. Like, I can't think of, oh god, it's like how exhausting. But yeah, I'm in this realm now where it's like I don't even know what I fucking like in anyone.
Maybe it's just overwhelming to feel like you have to figure out what it is. You know, to solidify the four things that you're after can be quite challenging.
Well, that's the other thing. That's the other place I'm in at the moment where it's just like, you know, is that even is like relationship? You know, we're all kind of moving towards this idea of like we all should be in relationships, and we're, you know, that should be a thing.
I
that
think
we're all
moving
doing.
away from that, don't you?
I think
In terms of like, I mean, not everywhere.
I think
but if
the
you're talking
rhetoric-
about inner city Sydney.
No. I think the rhetoric is moving away from it. I think everyone talks a big talk about, you know, poly lifestyle and all this shit. But I think fundamentally, when you break it all down, most people, you know, want to find the love of their life
Want a
and that
mate.
one
That
person
stuff is
that.
pretty baked in from a pretty early
Yeah.
age. Like you can't shake that with a couple of think pieces that
Exactly.
you read online.
And
Like,
one
it's-
generation.
Yeah, and one generation or half a generation or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you call this. Like it's just not enough. Like that stuff's gonna be there for a while. And yeah, you're right. Like it is like the most privileged kind of relationship. It's seen as like really the only valid, truly valid form of human connection. Everything else is kind of subjugated to
What,
That's just
that
'cause it
one-
was
that one.
the romantic relationship, and even you know that it, like you say, the one really important romantic relationship, the idea that there is the supreme one out there, you know, like which is Disney
Good
shit
Lord.
that we all verbally deride, but somewhere deep down, like that was coded in at a very young age.
Because evolutionary wise, it served a big purpose to have the one partner. You know, it served us better in terms of
I think it
going forward and keeping the human species
see,
going
I
to
think-
have the one partner.
I think it goes beyond an evolutionary thing. I think it's like a spiritual, soulful thing. I think people want to feel. I think people want to feel like
Feeding
they
the soul.
found that perfectly connected jigsaw puzzle piece that click clacks in, and
but I
we
mean-
are like a unit. You don't think people
People
want that?
want a mirror. I think we're naturally binary. We want to find one other person that makes us make sense, that reflects us back to us in a way that we like.
Hmm.
And we want to believe that that can be forever because we're, you know, incapable of projecting into the future.
I'm a pretty romantic person, but even that, some of that stuff is kind of like too much for me. Like to be the whole thing of like completing you and all that kind of stuff. It's like shit. Like,
This
I
is
mean,
the thing.
people want to be happy with someone who treats them in a way they'd like to be treated. And if you can treat them in a way that you'd like to treat someone and they receive that in a way that they want, then you're lucky.
I think
and
that's
if
a
you
level.
can grow together, you're lucky. But the whole idea of like looking to be completed or
I think that's a
it's
level of
kind of
pragmatism
like
that most people don't practice.
really.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Go down
I
the fucking
don't know
go down
anyone
the fucking
who's like,
circular.
I found my other half.
Yeah, but that's
like
because we
that
travel
stuff
in-
is so
I
disgusting.
do.
Yeah,
I do.
Go
I
down a circular
definitely
quay
do.
on a Sunday afternoon and watch all the fucking people pull up in their ridiculous Rolls Royces that they rented in their stupid ball gown, and they've bankrupted themselves for their dumb
Oh, no, I think
day.
marriages are
You know what I
adorable.
mean? It's like, of course, those people think, "Oh my god, when the ring goes on my finger, the
they
angels will
can-
come down and everything will be great." No, it won't.
They can be married without thinking. I have no problem with marriage.
I have no problem with marriage
But I
either.
don't
The
think that
theatrics of marriage, though, lends itself to a belief that this
and
is
a throwback.
it.
Yeah,
And I
a
think
throwback.
marriage aside for a second, like you genuinely, if you like step outside of, I hate what I'm about to say because it makes me roll my eyes all the time, like the bubble that we're in, like that, you know, if you go to fucking the suburbs to Middle Australia, if you look outside of where we are, it's that belief is fairly unchallenged.
The belief of the
And
one.
it might not be always articulated, like in a like very extreme Disney kind of way, and people might pay lip service to that kind of pragmatism that you're expressing, Jen. But I think in general, people do, whether or not they like
I
it,
agree.
actually really believe in the one other person out there for them, and look. You know, I'm fundamentally a romantic as well. Like, I get it. I don't deride people for having hope that way, but I do think it's worth unpacking why it is we, you know, and how realistic that is and where that comes from. And the fact that it goes unchallenged is unhealthy.
Well, it
But I
seems
think it is challenged. A lot of people aren't getting married at the rates that they used to. But I do think it is an evolutionary thing. It was a safer thing. It was a smarter thing. There's lots of countries where they still encourage marriage because it's a business transaction.
Yes,
it's
but
two businesses coming together.
But it's always, but for most of human history, it has been a business
Exactly.
transaction.
But that's the mentality that's been drilled in for so long. And so it serves that purpose in that you're marrying into a family that will keep you fed, clothed and sheltered, and when you have children, you'll be supported.
That's the pragmatic view of it, and that's the view that existed for most of human history.
But that's also the evolutionary perspective.
Yeah. But a recent development has become this idea of my husband or my wife is my best friend, my best lover.
Well, that's an extremely Western perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not happening but I'm saying in terms of like us saying how it's jumped from evolutionary to romance. That's very specifically a Western.
Yeah. But I can only talk from a Western perspective.
Totally,
about
of course.
Society and our culture.
But I just don't think that it's evolved that way everywhere. It's still a business transaction for people. It's still, a way to ensure a family's wealth or to ensure that your daughter is going to be okay, or it just depends where it is. But
I'm talking about where we live, and I think most people in Western culture who have grown up over the last 100 years with fucking fairy tales and Disney movies and romance stories and all this stuff have an idea that there is that one person out there, which in itself is so absurd.
Bonkers.
Well, I mean, I heard this thing the other day. It was like, there's 7.5 billion people on Earth, and you can't even comprehend that number. Like your brain can't put that into any kind of quantifiable thing.
Yeah.
So it was this thing of like, if you sat in front of a screen and a photo of every single person that's alive right now flashed in front of you for a second each.
Oh my God, yeah, you've told me this before.
Yeah.
How far would we get?
If you sat there and for 7.5 billion seconds, it's 220 years.
Yeah.
You'd be sitting there for 3-4 lifetimes looking at faces over and over and over again. So this idea that there's this one person out there is like absolutely fucking absurd.
I have seen like a breakdown which was very interesting, which was to do with the compatibility. So if you accept, if we just kind of, really look at this on a scientific level, you're going to be compatible in an extreme way with X number of people. And that's the kind of like compulsive love that you find when you meet someone, you're like, holy shit, I will die if I'm not around this person. And then there's like all the steps down from that, which are like, varying degrees of compatibility. The chances of that happening, like someone did the maths on it, and I wish I could remember like a more solid reference, but I'm sure with like a short amount of Googling you could get there. And it's like the number of people in the world who like fit into each band of compatibility as described. And it's they're pretty good odds.
Yeah. And when you do it the backwards way, where they actually break down like Sydney or your area and how many people you're compatible with, it's kind of frightening because people are like, there's so many people out there. But then you look at how many people they're actually compatible with, it's not really that many.
In Sydney.
Like if you break down any one area. So if you were to break down Sydney and then you'd break it down to say suburbs that you frequent. And then you'd break it down to people who are in your age bracket that you would consider mates. And then you break it down to people who are
single,
heterosexual
or whatever.
Heterosexual, their religious things aren't going to stop them from pursuing you. You break it down to people who are actually suitable. It's surprisingly small when you feel like the world is so big. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does.
Yeah.
Like I remember, again, like I can't remember where I read it, but I think it might have been a podcast, like This American Life or something like that. But I remember being surprised because I was like, oh, fuck, yeah. Like even in a big city, if you break down all those other factors of like, all the shit you say no to, like, maybe you don't want to date someone who's religious, or maybe you do, or maybe you don't want to, whatever age bracket you're after, it's actually slimmer than we think, which I think is interesting.
You were telling me once, Ange, about an article you read about like the 30 questions that if you ask someone while you're making eye contact with them. Do you remember anything about that?
I can't remember what the questions were, but I remember there basically being the theory behind this experiment. And it was academic based stuff. It wasn't, some pop psychology bullshit, where they'd gone and done research to find that this is the set of questions that you can ask, and it engenders a sense of intimacy and a bond between people that actually sort of like supercharges your chances. Like if you have any compatibility with that person, these questions will make you, feel as if you're falling in love with them. Like that is how you do it. You can do it.
Fuck. So, what is the implication of that? That we're just these fucking...
But I believe in that, but then I also think that's like short term. Like you can do that and you can feel like you are falling in love with them.
Well, yeah.
But then you
That's
go
why
out
I
and
added
then
the-
it's
yeah,
like, you know,
conditional.
they'll do something fucked and you're like, nah.
We talked about this before when me and Jen went and saw the Marina Abramovic thing where,
Yeah.
you stare into each
You
other's
rummage.
eyes.
Yeah.
There was a time where Jen was going to gigs going, oh, it's so good, you should try it with me. And a whole
We
bunch.
both did it at the lounge.
Yeah, but no one fell in love with me. A whole bunch of dudes fell in love with you and were sending you messages going, I think I love you. Because they looked into her eyes for 5 minutes,
We
and oh my
never-
God,
yeah.
our souls unfolded and now we're connected. And
Yeah,
it's,
We
and-
stopped doing that after a while. Live and learn.
But see, this is the thing. Like, on the one hand, you're like, okay, it's eminently possible to fall in love because there's, 7 billion of us and there are so many who are compatible. And then actually, given that none of us ever leave the suburb, that we spend most of our time in, it's completely impossible. And then you lock eyes with someone.
Impossible, but it's slim. It's slimmer than we would assume when you look at how many people are in the world.
Right, but like I'm saying, like you oscillate between this like optimism and this pessimism, and then you hear the story about the eye gaze, and you're like, oh,
But that's not
it's
love.
fine.
Do you really that's totally not love?
No,
do you know what I mean?
but I think so much of why you don't end up with intimacy with people is that you don't get over the first hurdle. Because if you think about
What's the first hurdle?
The first hurdle is like getting to a certain degree of intimacy and familiarity with someone where you're invested in their life and you care about them. Like if you are stuck in a room, like look at housemates. If you are stuck spending a lot of time with people, workmates, that's why workmates, people are always so close with those people, and you end up like so many people end up marrying or partnering up with for the rest of their life someone that they work with. It's because if you spend enough time with people, you'll become familiar with them. Intimacy will grow from that, and whatever part of your brain, maybe it's not the best match in the whole universe, but you'll go, shit, I reckon I could have kids with this person and well, maybe I love them. You just kind of do that maths all on your own. I think there's a familiarity and an intimacy hurdle that once breached, we actually have a fairly broad definition of love as a species, I think. Broader than we're ever prepared to admit because we're fundamentally romantic, and so it's not comfortable to admit that because somewhere deep down we want to believe that it's a special diamond. But actually, if you just work with someone for long enough and maybe you lock eyes for a bit over some work drinks, it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, but I still have
that's
the
where the
longevity
eye-gazing
thing
things-
where
yeah.
it's like that can happen because I've had those relationships where I've been around someone and I have been in love and loved them, and then I've reached a point where I'm like, this is not working because we do not work
No, but
compatibly
but
long
that-
term.
but
Do you know
that-
what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
that's-
I feel like there's a difference. I don't know, but then that goes even bigger where it's like types of love, where you can have an affectionate type of love for someone who you've been intimate with, and then you sort of realize it's not right, and it kind of molds in to some other type of love where it's like, friendship instead of something else. But I don't know.
But I think
And then I'm still thinking of the marriage thing that we were talking about before and what people think of it,
And that
which I
could-
guess
yeah.
above loving someone, it's also like a decision that you can live with them for ages and your love will go up and down and probably.
But it also could have, like, those relationships that you ended up with more or less because the person was put in your path, and so you ended up being familiar with them and intimate with them because life put you together. You could have ended up, like, it's just a compatibility question. It's just that's where the luck of the draw comes in.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, well, we got to this point. Are we compatible enough to kind of stay together, like to, go the
last
distance?
more than,
Yeah.
5 months, a year, 5 years,
but
whatever.
that lack of compatibility doesn't flow from the nature of you meeting them. It flows from just dumb luck.
But I also think that the love can't be truly classified as love until you've been with the person for long enough to see the totality of who they are.
Yeah.
And still want to
To
be
see
with
their
them.
flaws.
Yeah, and see, this is where my hopeless romanticism comes in, is that I reckon I've fallen in love with people, like proper love, actual love. And I'm not saying it's rational. Like, I'm not saying because I loved them completely, we were completely compatible, but I loved them and I fell in love in a night.
You really think you were in love?
Yep. It's the severity of the.
But you don't know
It's
them.
the severity of the right. Exactly.
So
But
you're
you
in
think
love with the idea
you
of
know
them.
something, but aren't we all in love with the idea of a person because we're
Not after a few years. No. No, but seriously, no.
But I think we're all fundamentally remote from each other. And we only ever really know an idea of the other person. We're all just interpreting data. And so we think we understand the other person, and that understanding is more and less detailed depending on how much data we have, how long we've been around that data.
Yeah.
But, the love that you, So if you accept that we're only ever loving the idea of a person, then the fact that you love them immediately, like the love is defined by the strength of the emotion, not the depth of understanding. You might later have to change your mind. You might, just because it's not lasting, it doesn't mean it's not love.
For me, I could never say I've loved someone after talking to them for a day. Because people change so dramatically. Like if I think of how I've presented on a first encounter or a first date with someone, that is so far removed from who I am that if they were like, and when I've had creepy people be like, I love you.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't know anything about me. Like to me, and I understand what you're saying. We only know as much as we know, which is an idea that's presented to us. That's how people are with someone for 50 years and don't know they've been cheated on for 40.
Sure, yeah.
You know. But I still think it's different I still think that love evolves with people.
That's true.
But I don't know if I personally could never say I love someone after hanging out with them for a day because I just feel like it's such bullshit in the beginning.
Point of clarification. This is like I'm thinking of people who I had already met and had an idea of, and then the process, the like flip from being like, oh, I'm interested in this person to being like, holy shit, like I have to see this person. Happened like
see for me I'd be like I'm
has happened
infatuated
pretty quickly for me.
I'd be like I'm infatuated or I'm in lust with them, but I would never call it love.
For me, it's different. There's different stratas and genres of love.
Have you ever felt like that? Like what Ange's saying, where you sort of met someone and you're like, oh my God, that's it. We're in this. I love you. Like, or however you would paint it.
See,
you've had relationships where you've known early on that you're like locked in.
One of my exes I knew within
pretty quickly
10 minutes that we had
you have something.
We had a journey together.
Yes, I've felt like that.
And it's almost like remembering a thing that has yet to happen.
Yes.
It's like you're at the end of your life and your life is flashing before your eyes and it's that part of and it's a part of the narrative where you're like, oh yeah, that's right. This is when this thing starts.
I've had that with big relationships. Before anything's happened, I'm like, oh, we're in this for a while.
Yeah, we're here.
But I wouldn't call it love for me. So I'd call it something else for me where I'm like, where there's like that for me, it's like a comfort thing. I was going to say comfortability, but it's not coming out probably. Where like I've hung out with them and I'm like, oh, it's almost like a different part of my brain goes, oh, this is something special. So this is going to go on for a while. Even when, the up front I've been like, this is a fucking one night thing. I don't give a fuck. Like the other side of me.
Did you use that voice in the
totally.
Yeah. What was this sassy?
That's how I got him. That's how I get all of them.
I am actually feeling a little tingle right now.
No, but like
that way.
Yeah, but I've had that where I'm like, oh shit, there's something happening here. This is so weird. And then it's like, you kind of know. But I wouldn't, maybe it's like a confidence thing in them or me or my feelings, but I would never feel like it would be love. I'd just be like, oh, this is like an exciting thing.
I only know. Sorry, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, reviewing all the scenarios just now while you're reviewing the scenarios that I'm thinking of when I described this, there was always MDMA in the picture. So, take that, for what it's worth, I suppose.
Maybe you were just able to then feel way more honest than
MDMA has you sharing a piece of pre-chewed chewing gum with a stranger, so your perspective is skewed.
Maybe you were more you. Never fucking know. If you felt it, it's there. But for me, I'm too. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
too scared.
For me, I feel like the only I know that I love someone for real. I can suspect that I've loved someone, and I'm not talking about just romantic love. I'm talking about platonic, friendship, all of that stuff. The moment I know for sure that I love them is after we've been through some kind of
trauma bonding.
Yeah, well, not even trauma bonding, but all of my closest friendships have at some point had a very dramatic conflict within it, where you see the person as they really are.
So flawed and whatever.
Yeah, you see the person, warts and all, and that's this juncture point where it's like, okay, well, we're not family, so we don't have to fucking spend any time with each other. Do we move through this?
Yeah.
Or do we say, hey, we had the time we had and it was a lot of fun and, we drift apart. And, most people that you ever come in contact with in your life, you have a finite amount of time with and you drift apart. And that's just, that's most relationships. But every significant, like my best friends, I've had massive conflict with, to the point where it's like, oh, we're done. Like, we're no longer friends. And then just through time or history or connection
and choice
or whatever.
From both of you.
And choice, there's a drifting back. And that's when it's like, oh, well, then this person has gone from just being a friend to, whatever you want to call it, like family or...
But don't you think that's like just a really similar to like romantic relationships?
Yeah.
as well?
And that's
like
the same
thing.
And that's what I'm talking about within romantic relationships. Like, I've had romantic relationships, the one that, like, the really
Big
intense
one.
love ones, where something terrible would happen and there'd be this moment of like, do you forgive me? And it's like, well, I don't have a choice because I love you.
Yeah.
And
It's like
of course I forgive you because
frustrating.
I can't not forgive you because I'm fucking in love with you.
It's almost so frustrating. I was talking about this because like recently, I can't even remember what it was. It was like a silly fight about something. But I remember like being resigned to the fact where I was like, fuck, we're just going to have to do what we do, where Chris is going to be calm and he's going to lie down in bed and relax, and I'm going to yell into the abyss for a while, and then I'll go and hug him and we'll be fine. Because it was like, I know that this is just going to play out and it's going to be fine because this is what we do now. If there's a problem, like it's like, I was talking to a comic, ex-oinker, Sian Smith, the other night, because she was saying when her and her boyfriend argued, they got heaps of noise complaints, the whole building.
Oh my God.
Because they like operatically scream.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, but it's just what we do. And
That's so interesting.
we've
And
worked
also-
it out.
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, for me, if there's conflict, I yell and Chris is calm, which doesn't shock anyone. But he'll just be like, I think what we need to do is just go to bed and we can talk about it tomorrow. And then the psychotic wog in me is like, you don't fucking care. And then we'll go to bed. And all that happens is I'll like, I have to reach out the token arm. I'll like touch his arm and then that's it. And then it's like, okay, come on.
Yeah.
Because like what you were saying, it's like the thing with friends where you're like, all right, we've aired all the dirty laundry whenever we did. And, with mates, you're like, oh, you fucked up. But, okay, I know that in 2 days, but you'll call me and we'll hang out for coffee. Or in relationships, you'll put your arm out and we'll hug. No, after the hump, after the big...
See, all my like, whatever, my 5 dearest friends that I would consider, like, family, because they've transcended beyond, like, just, buddy or pal or mate, we have had conflict that has extended for... I mean, you and I
know, Ben. I know. I feel like you're...
I mean, it's no secret. There's no secret I'm talking about you. But it extends to all of my close friends.
Yeah.
I have every single one of them. There's been a period of at least a year where we didn't talk and we didn't like each other.
We didn't have a year of not talking. We
you
definitely
and I
had
went
awkward
through nearly
shit.
9 to 10 months of not speaking to each other, frosty as fuck.
Well, that's right. But we were
working
always
together,
next
and
to
it was
each
very
other.
bad. It was very rough.
How do you come back from something like that?
It just happens.
No,
You
but
just
no, that's not good enough. How do you come back from
Well,
something like
with us, if it's tension,
Well, now we're better at it. Now we can
one
talk
of
it
us
out.
will make the other one laugh.
that? Okay.
Or Ben will say something that makes me laugh, and I'll be like, oh, I miss that so much. And then I'll be like, oh, I miss Ben. And then I'll be like, oh, Ben's not the devil.
But how?
And then I'm kidding.
No, but that is an interesting question because we've had many conflicts.
Well, nowadays.
Now we talk it out, but there was one where we didn't speak for like 10 months, and it was just fucked. And I think it just, the ice just melted one day.
Do you know the funniest thing?
And it's just
You just got bored. You just got tired
I think
of
you
it.
just get
Tired of it.
exhausted. It's,
And you know
it's
what?
exhausting to hold on to a fucking grudge.
Totally.
The one that
Yeah.
was 9 months, the argument that stemmed from wasn't even a big thing.
No.
I think it
never
was
is.
just we were both stubborn and we'd both hung out so much that we were both like, fuck you. And then
Well, and also we were doing that petulant thing where one person would defrost a little bit and make some kind of
But I
attempt
think that
at
was
connection, and the other
fear.
one would be like, fucking whatever, I'm not ready to forgive you.
Yeah.
And then
That's
2
so
days
hard.
later, the other would fucking go, oh,
Yeah.
well, maybe I'll reach out now. And the other one, like, well, I tried to reach. It was never spoken. It was all unspoken.
It's tit for tat thing.
But, I've had that with,
just talk it out now.
all of my dear friends. Like, there's been, like one of my dearest friends, Blake, has just come back into my life. We have literally not spoken to each other for a year.
Yeah.
And how did you thaw that one?
That was a crazy one. He reached out after nearly a year, and I was very much just like he was just sending messages and stuff, just trying to kind of reset it the way pretending there was no time had passed.
Okay.
Sending the same jokes that we would always send with each other,
Okay.
and I was like, get fucked, man. You don't get to fucking just do that.
Okay.
And then I don't know. As soon as we saw each other, we just saw each other and we just like burst out laughing and it was like the warmest hug and it was just over.
I think
It
it's
was
just
done.
the fear goes. It's the same in a relationship where all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't have to do this. Like where we know each other.
And the
It's
history.
okay.
And there's, I think
the
history makes a big difference as well.
reminds you of like, oh, I don't have to be on edge or I don't have to be the aggressor. I don't have to be scared.
And I can be vulnerable in
and
front
I can
of this
be
person.
vulnerable again because laughing with someone is so vulnerable and being with them in that, it's that safe feeling again where you're like, oh, it's okay. Like I can.
And also, it's like taking a giant psychic shit. Like it really is. Like it's the relief is just, when Blake and I hugged, like it was, we kissed each other on the cheek, and it was extremely like brothers, and there was no, and we've since kind of gone, like we've made jokes going
Sure.
like, you little shit fit where you fucking ran away for a year, you fucking loser, all that kind of stuff.
That's the stuff that makes it smaller.
Yeah. But that initial, it wasn't like, we need to meet at a, neutral location and discuss what happened.
Yeah, it wasn't conflict resolution. It was quite organic.
Yeah, it was just a year of not speaking, and then we had a hug and it was done. And there was no need to
What do you
fucking
do?
dissect it.
See, I'm not okay with things not being okay for any amount of time. And that's something that I know that that's not very adult, and I'm
No, I struggle with that.
Yeah, I'm conscious of it, and I try to like, which is why I'll try and like thrash it out at the time, and like I've had partners who are not at all comfortable with that, like so that it ends up being like the conflict will be, I'll be like this explosion, and they'll be like this non-responsive pebble. Like this, like it all just kind of happens.
They will be? Or,
Yeah, they will be. I'll be like this, come on, like let's work it out. Like it's not, I'm not like angry though, because I'm always trying to resolve, make things fine.
You want to fix it.
I want to fix everything.
I can relate to this.
So I'll like try and talk things out. I'm like, and like be attacking it from different angles, but just like by trying to talk through everything. And some people just need time to be pissed off. And
Yeah.
I'm not very good at that with friends, with partners. Anytime there's interpersonal conflict, I'll just try and fix it up. And people, and I can be quite officious about that because that is my way. And so people will, it adds insult to injury because they're like, just let me be angry with you.
And I'm not working to your timetable.
I'm not working to your timetable. No, you don't get to have it be okay now because you fucked up or, I think that you fucked up. And so now you have to, we do this. And then I'm kind of like, I think that like the punitive, like, doghouse thing kind of sucks. I'm like, can't we just talk about it? But that
there's an intense panic cycle that you can get stuck in when you
Yeah.
know that someone is angry about you. Angry at you.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, and like that idea that like, God, what are they thinking about? Are they thinking nasty things about me? Are they muttering under their breath about how fucked I am?
Which they're not. They're usually just processing their own shit.
a lot of
And I
time they are.
think, when I've been in that situation, I've got better at this, but when I was younger, less experienced in having people be angry at me, I'd be like, oh, well, they're mad at me. Oh, well, the friendship's over now. And I wouldn't contact them after that because they'd be like, well, they hate me.
That's
so
it.
why would I do it? And then, I've had relationships die over that because it didn't get kind of resuscitated in time because I'd fucked up and they were waiting for me to, whatever model of conflict they'd had in their family or growing up or so far in their lives, they were waiting for me to come kind of cap in hand and be like,
Sorry.
mea culpa, but at an appropriate time. And it never happened because I'm like, well, they hate me and why would I bother them? They don't want, a piece of garbage like me around anymore. I'll just go over here and make new friends. You know?
I can totally relate to that.
I have the opposite. I go into like messianic. Where I'm just like, they don't fucking deserve me.
Yeah.
I'm burning it down. We're never speaking again.
Look, both of us lose friends over it. So I think, potato.
Yeah, I know. No one's a winner. But I'm.
The last argument you and I had, it was like,
We were very mature though.
Yeah, but the before we were mature, my head was just like burn it to the ground.
Oh, I knew that.
The friendship's done.
Oh
Fuck
my
10
God.
years of history.
You know what it was
Fuck
about?
it all.
It was
That's what
about
was
the
it about?
podcast.
Yeah, it was about the podcast.
No.
Because we both overthink everything.
Yeah.
And I knew, I feel like that was good though, because we were in a place where I could recognize what you were doing straight away. And I knew what I was doing, where I was just beating the shit out of myself. Mm-hmm. And we were both like projecting on each other. And I was like, I remember offering to you, like being like, I know that we care about each other. And I know, like I remember thinking at the time, I think I talked to Chris about it. And he was like, over the podcast? Like, I remember thinking...
Yeah, but it's never the
No,
The
well,
thing is never
proxy,
the thing.
proxy,
It's the
it's Syria.
fucking...
Well,
Yeah.
it was a bit of the thing, though. And I think
Yeah,
it was just
but
the rest of our lives going into that thing.
Yeah.
Like, other shit we were both going through. But I remember thinking, like, all right, well, we've known each other for this long. We've gone over this much shit. Do I want this friendship, this relationship to be over because of this? No. So I'm just going to say that and hope for the best.
So I'm going to ring you and talk in a very conciliatory
Yeah, I
tone.
did too. Do you remember?
Yeah, no, I remember.
I was like, I know that you're upset. I would like to see you for a coffee. And I was
Which
like,
I-
that's step one because
Yeah, right.
in the past I've had people just be like, yeah, sure, and then never contact me. So I knew that was a risk. Like I
Yeah.
knew calling, I was like, he just may say no and I'll have to be okay.
Yeah.
Which I've since taken that method of conflict resolution. You know, because we were talking about this, I think, before the mics got turned on. This, you know, I think you were saying, Ange, that, you know, people think that you
Are angry.
enjoy
aggressive.
conflict or that you
Yes.
thrive
Sorry,
on
yeah,
conflict.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know,
I think
people...
it's so warm. It's so funny. I'm so fucked up with reading people sometimes.
No, I get read that way as well. No, that is definitely a read that people get from me. But I think I've developed that because, or maybe I've developed it in tandem with the perception I'm often really wrongly perceived as being arrogant. I get in like people get their, it's only a certain category of people, but is a defined category of person who I will come across and they will straight away get their backs up because they read me as being arrogant and they react against that. And it's a similar category of people who read that I'm being very confrontational and very critical. They think that I'm aggressive. And I think I have a very direct way of communicating and I don't mince words. And I think my career where I'm a journalist, you know, like, and you are very combative a lot of the time, that's, exaggerated that. And I think the reason I've, developed quite good, like, ways to sort of smooth everything and make everything nice, it's no coincidence.
Yeah, reaction.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time that's also a defense mechanism against like a lot of people think that I am very thrive on conflict. And, I try to say it's like those birds that have evolved like eye patterns on their wings to scare off predators. Like I'm not, I'm fucking terrified of everything. And it's just easy to be like,
I always
pretend that I'm big and scary, but I'm
so
not.
evocative. I can see you as a bird with weird wings.
That can be your animal.
Yeah, that's
your
my spirit animal.
animal.
But it's that thing of like, actually fear conflict,
Yes.
profoundly. It's terrifying. And so I think that's where that whole backup of like, well, then fuck them, burn it down. That, and it's
See,
not,
I
I don't actually feel that because every time I have a conflict, for example, that one that we had, the moment we started talking, it was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to play this character in my head of the, I don't care, I don't give a shit. I'm like, yeah, really? What are you, fucking 9, you fucking idiot?
I have no idea how people perceive me. I never know. I am amazed. I wish, like when you were saying how you've sort of worked out how a common way that people perceive you or respond to you.
Yeah.
And so you've countered that with other attributes. I never know.
Well, you know
I never
what?
fucking know. I find it so confusing when people say, and I think it's normal to know. I think I just don't.
No, I don't think it is.
But Jen, here's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
Like, the reason that I know is because I get people's backs up. Like the other ways that I'm read by people, I'm comparatively, I'm in the dark about those. So
Yeah, you don't know how everyone's feeling, obviously.
Yeah, but my point being that you not knowing is kind of a good thing. It's sort of like you don't hear about it unless there's a problem. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're obviously not getting people's backs up. Well, you got
you hear if
Ben's
there's
back.
a problem, yeah.
Yeah, and you've it sounds like you've heard it. Times
I've
when
heard a
there's
few.
a problem.
Times when there's a problem. People think I'm aggressive, and those people are often really confrontational. But I don't care about.
No, but
conflict.
you have that thing. I think you and I have a similar thing where we, fundamentally have, at our worst, a low opinion of ourselves, and so that leads to a sense of withdrawal, which can be perceived as arrogance or can be perceived as snarkiness
100%,
or rudeness, where a lot of there's so many situations where I've talked to someone, had a great conversation, and then 6 months later seen them, and in my head I'm like, either A,
Yeah.
they would never remember talking to me because I'm such a fucking nothing, or B, they do remember me and they're like, oh my God, it's that fucking freak of nature. I don't want to talk to that guy. So I act all standoffish and they're probably thinking, what a fucking
Why
arrogant
is Ben
cunt.
ignoring me?
Yeah, we had a
that
great
chat.
conversation and now this prick's fucking ignoring me. What
I'm
an
exactly
asshole.
the same, but instead of being standoffish when I see them, I'm withdrawn.
Mm.
Right.
Like I'm just like, because they're probably, I don't know. I hate it. I hate that quality about myself.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but
It's so shit.
And the older I get, the more fundamentally just exhausting. It's just exhausting, you know. And you would hope that this stuff starts getting hammered out with age, but
You guys, as people, and I'm like, from the same sort of cut from the same cloth here, but as people who have a self-confessed low opinion of yourself, has that improved with time?
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. My one is, see, I've got this thing where I will swing between like messianic complex and just you are the biggest piece of shit on earth.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of grateful for both. I wish that I could find a little middle
Just split
ground.
the difference.
Yeah, I wish I could split the difference because I
I'm
feel
not
like
like
the self-loathing keeps the messianic complex in check and vice versa. And I don't get lost too much in either one, but yeah, it's exhausting, and I would like to find a middle ground, but I'm not sure how to.
I'm
Yeah.
not like Benny. I'm never. My brain never goes to like, well, I'm better than them, so fuck it. Like ever. My brain is always like, I mean, I don't think I'm that extreme either. So does it get better with age? I think yes, for me.
It
I
has
think
for you.
I'm
like,
a lot
knowing
calmer,
you.
but I still will automatically blame myself for things that don't even exist.
Yeah.
Like I'll be in a group chat. I got added to a group chat the other day. I'm not even good with social media. The moment I was added to the group, a chick left immediately who I had offended the other day. And immediately, which is so narcissistic, I was like, oh, it's because she fucking hates me because I've hurt her feelings or I've upset her. And, you know, but like getting so self-conscious straight away. And then I remind myself, like, this is so fucking self-obsessed. She probably has a life. She's not thinking about
So even your
this.
antidote to your self-loathing is self-loathing.
It's criticism. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible. It's a bad
But,
habit.
but that self-loathing is just another form of narcissism because it's like you said, it's that idea that everyone's thinking about you. No, they're not.
The funniest part is that I felt like I was doing really well. I was like, I've gotten really good. Like, that's all that happens now.
You're like, oh no, wait, never mind. You don't matter. Like
I preface
that's the
that with
solution?
like, yeah.
No, I do
solution?
the same. It's all
I
about
think I've gotten a
me.
little better.
I was at this, you know, this job that I recently, you know, the contract expired and I left. But you know, like I'm the, you know, the guy in the office that no one really knows because I'm a day player, freelance guy.
Sure.
You know, and I'm very inconsequential within the scheme of this office politics. I don't really know anything, but every time some, you know, one of the heads of production was storming around or something, I was immediately like cowed-shouldered, like, what have I done? What have I done? It's like, they're not after you. What is this fucking persecution complex? Like, where does it? And I can only
It's so
think,
weird.
but I think it's what you said. Like, it's a different form of narcissism. It's the narcissism of I matter, but not in a good way. I matter significantly as the
it's
biggest
not a-
piece of shit. I'm the best piece of shit.
But
Yeah,
no,
it's not a good quality.
We're incapable of projecting outside of ourselves. I think like you're rounding up like garden variety solipsism into narcissism at that point. Like, of course you're going to see the world and what's just happened in front of you through your own eyes and wonder if you've had an impact or a hand in that outcome.
You don't think
Of
that's
course you are. I think we're way too ready with the word narcissism these days. I think it's actually like we're fundamentally, of course, we're stuck, you know, in this particular perspective, looking out from these two eyes with our brain. We're incapable. We're structurally incapable. Like it is a feat to project into the perspective of another person. So much so that we have words for it. We call it empathy. You know, your natural state of being is to exist, you know, inside your own
universe of your own head.
flesh prison, your own universe. So to kind of, I mean, I think it's a natural perspective, and if you've got the reflex to question that at any point, then you are the opposite of a narcissist. You're a step ahead of
Yeah,
the
a
majority
narcissist would just
of people,
obsess
you
about
know,
their own shit.
and
That's
not
true.
even question, not even wonder that. I think like narcissism has become one of these very easily diagnosable, like, you know, top of the pile DSM things that we go to now to be like, oh, they're a narcissist. They're a narcissist. And yeah, sure, some of them might be narcissists, but I think it's also we're not being fair to ourselves because we are fundamentally, structurally self-concerned.
Do you think that everyone is fundamentally solipsistic?
Yes, we are. It's just the structure. It's just how we're built. It's just
how you protect yourself, isn't it?
and it's also just it's literally the perspective. Like it's how we've evolved. It's how we are. It's nothing special or bad necessarily. I think it just is how we are. But yeah, I don't know.
It's how we got to where we are.
No, but there's also like
Putting you
cooperation
first,
and
brother.
Well,
Number one.
I don't necessarily agree with that because, there's also cooperation and empathy with, baked within that cake. Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't be where we are if we weren't capable of, projecting outside of ourselves. Yeah. But yeah, we are.
I don't mean that as a catch-all defense to every sort of selfish action that a human performs, but yeah, except just a very shallow point that narcissism is very top of the pile.
No,
and it's a bugbear of mine. It's like a thing that I'm
it is thrown around.
No, I think you're right. Like
people love
the
to
word
say
psychotic is thrown around.
Or
an
their
ex,
exes.
you're like, yes.
Everyone's like, oh, such a narcissist.
Oh, they were a narcissist. Oh, were they?
Yeah,
were they? Now
Were they exactly like you and you guys just didn't work?
Yeah.
you were stuck in a death spiral together, reflecting each other back at each other.
Isn't that what happens when it falls apart?
Oh,
You're just
man.
describing a breakup at that point.
Yeah, fuck, we covered everything.
We did it all.
And
we
Benny,
solve
we
it?
didn't cover everything that we've covered before.
I know, we didn't talk about
How
the apocalypse.
lovely was that? No, don't discuss it now.
All right, sorry,
I'm very
sorry.
happy. This was lovely.
Anytime me and Ange go out drinking, it immediately clicks into the apocalypse.
straight to the
Thank
end
you
of the
for
world.
not
It's
talking
the first thing
about
I
that
said
tonight,
when
Ange.
Ange arrived. I was like, let's not talk about the apocalypse.
But how lovely. Covered all of these bizarre topics. What shall the word be? Would you like to pick it later?
I don't know about the fucking word anymore.
We started at tattoo.
What was going to be your word?
It was tattoo, and then I sort of was going to bust down to fatalism, but then I was like, nah, it's too close to apocalypse because I knew that it was a trap for us to talk about apocalypse. So I was like, fatalism.
I like tattoo. I'm going to say that it was tattoo because that's what we started with, and that's the word Ange had.
I feel like the whole kind of theme of the show is changing as we go on anyway.
Definitely, but don't you think it's nice to?
Yeah, it's good. Evolution.
Externalization would be a good word potentially. That was like because that sort of joins a lot of the themes that we covered. Externalization. I know.
We did it.
We did it.
Thank you so much.
My
Thanks.
pleasure.
And
Thanks for
where can
having
people
me.
find you on the internet?
People can find me.
Your great podcast.
Oh, yes. I have a podcast for the ABC. It's a daily news and current affairs podcast where you can hear me explore my obsession with the end of the world and all the other stories in the news. And then, yeah.
It's the only podcast that a friend of mine does that I don't listen to out of obligation and actually listen to because it's a really fucking great podcast. It's great. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And then I have a Facebook page where people can find my comedy things.
And you're doing shows?
I'm doing shows. I'm so fucking bad at plugging my comedy. I'm doing Adelaide Fringe. I'm doing Melbourne Comedy Festival, a full run like an idiot. And then, that's correct. And then Sydney Comedy Festival as well. I'll be back in May. So, yeah, it's all happening.
Go find Ange. Hear her talk about the apocalypse in different areas. Because we didn't talk about it here, so there's suspense. What's her opinion? We don't know.
Thanks, Ange.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.